Hello, this is Max Drake. I want to talk to you about Obsidian. Obsidian, they kind of call it here, second brain for you forever. It's a powerful knowledge base on top of a local folder of plain text markdown files. So basically, it's a bit like Notion or things where you can gather a lot of information and you can start processing it in different ways. So there's a few of these sorts of tools around. This is just one of many. I particularly like this one because it does a few things that I find are quite reasonable. So the first thing that I always look at these is how much did it cost. So it's personal, 100% free for personal use. You've got access to plugins and API, and there's community support that you can do. So there's a community support through here. There's a plugins, and I think at the moment there's about 670 community plugins that you can actually use straight away. The one thing which you suddenly think, when I got it, first of all, I work on two computers at different ends of the house, so they're on the same network. And what I was finding was you need to keep them in sync. So if you're using it on one computer, not a problem at all. If you're using it on more than one computer, you need to have some sort of synchronization between the two. Now, I was doing it manually, and so it didn't cost me anything to do, but you can actually purchase the sync at $8 US a month to actually synchronize. So this is good if you're working from home and you're also working from the office, or you got a personal stuff that you're working on at home, and then you also maybe thinking about things in the office, and then you go to the office and you're working on a different computer there, and you want to sync across things. There are other methods that we can do, and we'll talk about those later. So what is it? So I've had years and years of issue about trying to get information to collate ideas and things like that and putting it all together. I've used Excel spreadsheets, I've used OneNote, I've used Evernote, I've used a lot of the note-taking things and things like that, and they just, none of them work for me. Inside Firefox, I've got this one which you've got a whole load of notes through there, or another one, but that's only on this PC. So when I try onto a different PC, the notes aren't there a lot of the time. Now, the one thing that I do quite like and I use frequently is Google Keep. But to me, it's a mobile first, and I find if you've got a whole load of notes, they're hard to search for, especially on a mobile phone. So I actually just use it for shopping lists and tick books and things like that. If there's something else I've just thought of, I just create a new note and I pin it at the top, and I actually put a few things down. Then when I get to onto my main computer, I just cut and paste those things that I actually want to do through there. Now, the other thing that it has great OCR. So if you're trying to get text out of an image, it's actually got a very good OCR tool as well. But as a note-taking thing overall, it isn't. And this I find really works for me. So when I first got it, I actually had it on one computer. Now, if we just look at how it looks, here's what you can see. So if we actually just go and look in the folder, and if we look at where this is actually stored, you'll see that when I look at that, this folder is identical to what I have in here. And if we click on any of these ones through here, you'll see that all it is an MD, so it's a markdown file. So it's just a whole load of markdown files of what it's actually keeping. So you can copy that anywhere you want, that structure. So I could, and this is what I was doing to begin with. I had two separate computers, and I was using Free File Sync to copy it between them both. So, they say it's a second brain. It's costed for free, notionally, although for Sync Extra. It's good for, and we're talking about the knowledge base and what it is. It is easy to use. And as I said, initially I was using Free File Sync to actually keep things up to date. Later on, I actually ended up saying, well, why was I actually file syncing on one computer onto the NAS drive? When I got onto the next computer, I then have to go from the NAS drive onto this local computer right over. If they get out of sync, it's very hard to get them organized. You've got to copy each particular file or note across to make sure that whichever one's updated, so you need to synchronize them. Now, there are a couple of ways to synchronize, and one is by using an S on the same system, or you can use Google Drive, or you can use iCloud, or you can use OneDrive, where you actually have a desktop app that's always syncing your local folder. You'd have your Obsidian folder syncing to the drive up there. So it's syncing all the time. So every time you log in, every desktop that you've got, you can sync it. So you can do that one for free, or you can actually pay the $8 as well. So that's one way to do it. So the con is you need to have your file updated. So you've got to have it on a NAS drive or somewhere else on a remote drive. Now I just want to keep mine on my actual network system, so that's why I keep it on my NAS drive now. So what's it good for? It's good for powerful for throwing notes together and then linking that information to other bits of information on there. And it's got some other powerful things like templating and tabs. And this is, to me, the big thing where I went, wow. So there's great resources on YouTube, and a lot of them are very, very current, you know, a year or 6 months or 3 years. There's an article that I was just looking on here, and it was published in March, so it's actually quite up to date. But there's this is something that completely set my mind as to where it is, and I was suddenly thinking, this is how I work. And this is this woman who worked in Notion and then moved across to Obsidian, and why she gave a very good explanation as to what it was. And she said in Notion you actually have to have your file structure and then you plug your information in as you go. With Obsidian, you just chuck a flipping note in anyway, and then you can create associations with it. And how do you do that? You actually make these tags. So at the top here you have tags or status or all these other keys and things. You can actually make them whatever you want them to be. And now here it's showing in this document, but I can actually go into the view mode and I can hide the metadata. And that's what's actually coming through. I just leave it in edit mode all the time because I'm always editing the stuff through there. But on here, depending on what tags, you can have multiple tags through there. I can go Obsidian and it highlights all of the items. So very easy to find information that you've got information on. So this to me is brilliant. How do I find information? I do it via tags. A lot of the times I actually generally do it by folder. I kind of know which subdirectories I'm actually keeping things. So that's one of the ways that I'll search. But after I've got something, I think, oh, I've got something else, where is it? And I can actually use this as a method. Now I've got a phenomenal amount of them that have only got one tag that don't relate to anything else. So there's standard ones, and whereas other ones have got quite a few. So that's really good to actually have a vast amount of information to be able to get to it quite easily. You know, and so if I'm suddenly thinking, oh, I've got this one on IDME and I want to click on that one there. So it jumps me straight into there. Now down in the here, I've got one called, this is a plugin called Recent. So it keeps a record of what you had recently. So it's easy to go back to the one that you were before. Now, if I wanted that one there, whichever one I did, IDME first course one there, I can drag that through and put it into there. So I know I'm going to come back and refer to that, and I can just put check out this note, and then I just click on that one, and I can actually just put it up on the same line just so I've got it there, and I can click on that and it takes me across, and it's actually got them both open at the same time. I tend not to do that, although if you're working on something you could split so that you're relating to different things across through there. I tend not to. I tend to just have the middle one. It's just the way that I'm working and what I'm doing. So a lot of the people who, when I was looking at the YouTube stuff and things like that, it seems to me there was an awful lot of developers and programmers who were using this, and they were doing some quite smart, freaky thing, which is wonderful because there's all these extra plugins that you can do. The other people who do it are people doing researchers, so people who are doing PhDs and stuff like that. So you start to think, oh, this is high level stuff. But it's just as great for people who are just using low level stuff as well. So when you do it, you actually go into the right hand side on here and you click on there and you can say create a new vault or open a vault as existing. So you can actually have the vault is basically a head folder, and so do you want to create a new folder of a new Obsidian thing, or do you want one? If you go through, like here I've got two open, no I'm actually going, so I can open another one. So I'm going to open another one, and this one's called Test Obsidian. So I'm going to select that one, and it opens up a separate instance. And so there's a separate instance. That's actually still got the dark theme on it. This one here I've set up in the settings, appearance, with the light theme, but I think there's also other themes that you can now get as some of the extra plugins. And so there's the appearance, there's core plugins that you've got, and like you can turn them on and off. There's audio recorder. I don't use that, so I just turn those off. So why have things that you want? And then there's community plugins. Now the community plugins, you can browse through here. I'll demonstrate one that I've got. I've got this installed. I don't like this, so I'm actually going to uninstall it, and then I'm going to install it again, just as a demo. But I don't like. I've got one calendar. I don't like to have lots of different calendars. It can be confusing. So I'm just going to do an install. You see on the side here, it's starting to install it, and once it's successfully installed, it's installed. But then you've got to enable it. So I'm now going to enable that. Now, as soon as you enable it, you see that you can get some hotkeys. So you can assign some hotkeys to certain things. So it says blank there. So it says open view. You can actually type in hotkey. So I'm going to go out 6, and it lets you do that. I'm actually going to kill that one because I don't want to. So this is something that I think is absolutely brilliant, which is hotkeys. Now, once you've got your plugins in here, so I've got my core plugins through there, and these are the core ones, and then I've got community plugins, which some extra ones that I've got. I didn't realize that the template was actually a core plugin. That's cool. And it gives you a location for templates. We'll talk about that soon. So these are the community plugins that I've got. Now there's one that I use quite a lot, which is highlighting some text. So I just want to pick something out, and you can actually have different colors of your text through all the way through there, and you can have them in different rounded or floating or realistic. I think I had, well, we'll go to realistic before, so leave it there. Now one of the things with that is I'm just going to close out of this and just show you something there. So if I go and highlight that and go right hand click, it comes into the highlight, but when I do it, it sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. It's not pumping up with anything. But what I found is if I actually use a hotkey, it works fine. So, and if you see that hotkey, what it's actually doing is it's actually just putting tags, HTML tags onto the things. Now I've got another one that I can select it again and go Alt E, and it takes them off. So this is where I love this from the point of view is you can actually assign your own hotkeys. So if I go, what is that highlighter? Here's the highlighter ones. I've got Alt B for blue, Alt U for cyan, Alt G for green, and Alt A for orange, and Alt P for purple, and Alt R for red. So they're easy ones, one to remove as well. So I've done ones where I'm using these quite a bit to pick out different things in an article that I just want to say, hey, look at this, this is important. So we've talked about that. So we can link. So the first one that we did was we actually just dragged a bit of information across here, so we can link two articles together straight away. We can do that. We can do that by having the same tags on there. So we could call this, say, ThingMe as a tag, and we can put ThingMe onto that one, and then their association. So when we come down to ThingMe, we know that that's something that we actually want to do. The tags, you can have as many as possible. I think you've just got to make sure that you've got a gap in between each one of a minimum one, I think, through there, and you're fine. Now I've got another one called status, and you can actually have a whole lot of other things through there. The reason you can have that is that you can start filtering on a whole lot of things, so that you can create a new note. No, let's just jump into doing a note. So if we just come back into here, I can actually come to the top. Now I don't use this. When I started to do it, I started to make folders and everything, but this just makes the folder at the very highest level. A lot of the times you actually want to make a folder at a further down level. So what I now do is in here, I will make a new folder called Thing. And inside here, I will make a new node called Thing. Thing. Whatever. Now, there's this blank note through here. Now this is one of the powers of a thing called template. Now I don't like, because I do HTML, I didn't want to use Markdown because I can't flip and remember it. I've got to start remembering a bit of syntax all the time to actually do it. But what you can actually do in here is I've got one for the template, Alt T, and you can pre-select a template. So I have some templates all set up here. And if we just look at some of the templates here, this is the template. So when I call that in, it takes the title and puts the title. So whatever my title up here is, and I can add whatever current. So I've got the status of current. I can actually switch between draft and completed, and then I've got these bullet points if I want to do bullet points, or I can do indents and tabs with a header if I want. So a lot of the things, it's already there. This thing down here, I saw this in somebody else's article, thought, oh, I'll give it a try, but I never use it, so it's not something I think I'll be deleting. I haven't found a use for it. I might find something later, but it's not. So a lot of these, because if you look at what you need to do to make a make this in stop that, you. If you look at what you've got to do to make that bit of markdown, to make the button, it's actually quite complicated, so I can't remember how to do that, so I don't bother. So they've now got those ticks in there. So all you can do is you set up your template to what you want. You just pull it in. So I've got a whole load of templates. I got one on stories that I can write. I got one. Somebody's got one that is pre-set up on a blog post. So it's sort of like it prompts for all of the things that he needs to do, and he's got the headers and the things and checkmates and drafts of what he needs to do to check through, and it comes through, and then he just goes ahead and writes his blog. So I thought that was quite a fun one. I haven't actually used that yet, but that's just that person's particular method of doing it. And again, it's worth just trying to see things and see if they work for you. So the thing with this, again, there's that idea of the notion of having the structure, and then you put things into the structure. And this one is you don't have the structure, but you actually just have tags that you actually do. So where was that one that I'd actually done? Thing. So if we're inside thing and we have thing, there's that thing of what we actually do through there. So I don't want any of that, and I just kind of blow that out and I start writing. I've got the header, I've got my date, I'm going to put this tag, and it's just going to be under rubbish and delete, and I can go and find them later and get rid of this particular article if I don't want it. But it's in a subdirectory where I want it, and I now keep things inside a folder so that I can organize things in that way. That's just the way I find it works for me. So it's powerful throwing things together and linking things with other associations, and you use the templates and you can use the tags to do that, and you can have different tags and stuff. Now, there's no need for preliminary structure, and I do want to talk about that later. And you can query this information using a plugin called Data Views, which basically says, go and find me, here's a new one, I want a new data view, and I want it. So it's basically something like an SQL query. Find me all of the notes which have Obsidian in and are status current, and then it'll give a table of all of those items, and then you can actually have another one. Give me another one which actually has all of the tags which have got Obsidian in and its status draft or completed, and then you can see where you are to manage things. I don't generally use them that much. I have played with them, and there's some really powerful things. I just haven't found a use case for them. I actually find I use this Kanban method to do it. Now with the Kanban method, this I found was brilliant. I started to write a couple of books, some technical books, and I found this was a great way to manage that. So I was doing books, and I was doing courses, and I was doing some translation of some of the books as well. They're just PDF books or eBooks in a way. So, but there's all these things that I actually wanted to do, and so there would be things that I'd search through and how I'd be writing the article. Now these are actual links to articles themselves. So if I click on that, it's going to take me to that particular article. And if I come back to the Kanban, so it's something that maybe it's something I need to do, and I need to put a bit more information in there, but I've got it sitting there to do, and then I've got current items of where I'm actually managing some things, and etc, etc, etc. And you don't actually need to link to an article. You can actually just put a note here, and if I keep it in there and go enter, and then I can actually add a date and say when I actually want something to be done by. Boom. And then I can drag that across and to wherever I want, or else I can just go into there and delete the card. So this I found is a great management tool. So that's another plugin that you can actually use along your way. So there's another thing called the graph, but I find this just goes haywire on me, and I've never quite got the thing to work as I need it to. Although there are some interesting things with that. So you can have multiple vaults, but I keep everything into one vault. So if we just go and look at my vault, I've got things on articles, family, health, Obsidian. This is a handy one that I actually have. There's a few things I forget how to use, so I've actually got links to them when I do them. So if I actually wanted to do flow diagrams and things, I played with that, but in the end I actually found I would do flow diagrams in a different app, and then I just take a screenshot and bring it into here. So let's just go and do a couple of things. So we went into that one there. So let's just get out of Obsidian, and we ended up with thing through there. Now the first thing that we could do, we can associate that with another project. So I did a bit of thing on second monitor. So I can bring that in. So if I wanted to go back to that article, it has some relevance. See this article on thingy. Now the other thing that I might want to do is I might want to link to I found an article in here that I wanted. Oh, this is something that I actually want to bring through. So no, I actually want something with an actual article. So here's one on phonetics. So what I would do here is I copy the link URL, and then I copy the title. Now what I'd actually normally have to do is you have to go open and close square brackets, this is for the markdown, and then paste in the title. Then you need to put open and close curly bracket, or curly brackets, and then go Alt V and paste in the URL. So this is using Windows 10 and above multiple clipboard where you can do that. Now I found that all a bit tiresome to actually do that. I had to do 2 cuts, and then I actually had to put those double braces and things in there. Then I thought, what I could have done in here, if I just go back and I'm going to do a second version of it, Alt T, and just bring in the metadata through there, is that I'd already preset these up so that I could actually just go V, and then I just go Alt V and find the second one through there and put it through there. Then I actually found a third way of doing it. I've used a thing called A-text, and inside here I've got one that I've set up, whereas I can insert from, I'm just going to put that right at the end here because I'm going to delete it, insert from clipboard, and this says current clipboard item or the one previously. So I'm just going to go to the one that one there. Go okay. So what I can do is I've set up this little macro that's got open square brackets, close square brackets. It's got the current clipboard, and then it's got the previous clipboard in curly brackets. So now I've got that bit of script into there. I can actually just go LLL, and there it's done it for me. So I've got that ready to go. Boom. And it works. So I've ended up writing something here just to speed things up in a way. And this is a couple of things where I've had to do a couple of tweaks just to make my workflow work for me a bit better. Now I could have done that in something auto hotkey script as well. So that's another thing that I was doing. And I actually find that A-text really good for doing just concept ideas of prototyping things quite quickly to develop them further if I want them to be more hard-nosed. So if we just come back to our article through there, we can, good for trying notes, we can link things and stuff like that. So this is where the knowledge base comes from, is that information is accessible. This is one of the things, you type a whole load of notes into something and then you don't know where they are or what they do or what they relate to, but the tags allow you to do that. So this is something that's really powerful to me, this idea here versus the Notion. To me, this is like an SQL database or a NoSQL database. An SQL database, you've got to build your table first, you've got to say what's in each column, and then you've got to populate your stuff, and then you've got to maybe have different tables with links to each having a relation thing with each other table so that you can then do SQL queries. With a NoSQL, you throw your data in and then you create associations between them such that they then have a connectivity that you can then do queries on. This also as well, I think, works with my brain type in is that what it actually does.
Hello everyone.
What it actually does is, I was useless at school. I hated school. I went to school in Lebanon, which was seriously prescriptive, and then I was in England and I was school there, and I did very poorly as well. And then I did an apprenticeship, and I did night school, and again that was really prescriptive. This is the way we do things. These are the steps you take to get to here. So a lot of them describe the journey, whereas to me what I find is, tell me what the goal is, what the content is. So I found university absolutely brilliant. This is what the course outline is. This is what you need to achieve at the end. These are course assignments that you do to demonstrate that you have an understanding of those things there. Now, how you get there is totally up to you. You can come to the lectures, you can go and read books, you can go and watch videos, you can do whatever you want to get your own knowledge to do that. And so I actually found the freedom. So this is why I really love this tool, because it's the way that my brain works. I find some interesting ideas. So here's some things which I've got in here, which is here's one that fascinated me. And it's about the doctrine of discovery. And there's a pope back in the 15th century who said, a way of spreading Christianity, as if you Christians go from a certain place and go across to, and in this case it was Canada, you can go across, and if you convert those people, or because you're Christians and they're not Christian, you can actually have ownership and sovereignty over the land, because they discovered the land and they gave them Christianity. So prior to that, although there were indigenous people there, because you discovered that land, you have right and sovereignty over that land, which seems to me absolutely shocking that one person can create that sort of environment. So there's a lot of disputing. So there's it's an article by AP News on the thing about the Pope visiting Canada, and I just was fascinated by the idea. So I've got that there. I haven't connected it anywhere, but it's easily in there. So, and I've got some other obtuse ones that I find really fascinating to read. There's a fine structure constant and things. I don't understand that much about it, but I've got information on there. I've got the link about it, and so it's something that I want to pursue maybe later on, and at some point in time I might find another thing, and then I can start associating it with it. So on this one I've got fine structure content and physics, and then I most probably only got one item on all those ones here, and I might end up looking at that up later, or finding another article, progress stagnations, superclocks, or what vaccines, and just things which are totally off the wall. But they fascinate, that they intrigue me, and I may want to do something about them later. Then I can actually connect things to it, or maybe it's part of a book or a story or something that I actually want to start pursuing. And this is something that you can put in there, you can find, and you can go back and develop further. So this to me is the power of, it's the way I think. You just throw stuff out there, and then suddenly you start seeing connections and stuff that you actually grow, and you develop things further. So I love it, and I love the idea of being able to have those things and explore. So here's another issue we've got. A lot of the times you're doing something, you're either in email or you're in your browser, and you find something that you want to do, and so you suddenly thinking, I want to put that in an article. So you've got your Obsidian down the bottom to click here. So how do you do it? So a lot of times you're flicking between the two. So you could just split your screen into two and go, I've got that, now I actually want to add that article there, and I just conceal that, so I've got more information to add a new article or something that I actually want. I find that as a nuisance. I actually generally work everything full screen, because I work on a laptop, and just because I find it convenient. So I don't like working on, unless I'm doing a cut and paste or something between two separate programs, in which case I can actually do something through there. So what I find is I need to quickly pop up an item. Like what I find is that if you just go Windows 1, it will pop up the first Windows 3 is Obsidian. So if I go hold the Windows key down and hit number 3 button, it'll open that. If I go Windows 1, it now opens up the browser, because that's the first one along there. The other way that you can do this is that you can go into right hand click on the Obsidian and go into properties and actually give it a hotkey, but I find these don't work very well. So what I've actually had to do is I actually use a hotkey program called Workspace, where I tell it how I actually want it to run, and it's only on one monitor. So if I had two monitors or something like that, it can actually opens up monitors. So sometimes I have Notepad, or no, I think that's free file sync, and then I've got Word and Firefox and code. As I'm switching between them all the way through, I prefer to use a hotkey rather than bringing the mouse down to actually start opening up programs when I want them. Now, sorry, when I use that hotkey, which is I think Control+6, or whatever the one is, it opens up a new instance of it. So here it's actually opened up a new instance. That's not what I want. I just want to open up the existing instance. So I've actually got a hotkey which I built using this workspace here to actually quickly flick up between this and something else. So I might want to check a particular article, or I'm writing, or I'm cutting and pasting a bit of information from one thing into another, that I can add it through into here. So that's another little hack that I've had to do on the side to be able to jump this up. I haven't found a way that you can just easily open this up without doing it. So that was my solutions. I'm sure there's another elegant solution to do that through there. So if we come back into here, you can do queries on your information. So we talked about that with the filtering. So three things. So a couple of things at the top here is images can be a bit of a nuisance, and code can be a little bit of a nuisance. So I do some coding, and sometimes I just want the idea of the code somewhere where I need to do it. So if I go into this one, no, that's not got it. This one here, you've got to make a code block, and then you can write the code. Because if you just try writing the code directly, some of the syntax that you have in your code is actually seen as markdown, and it starts making it go crazy. So you need to do these 3 back tildes and then code, or a hotkey or something like that, and that kind of says this is a different code block, don't mess around with this. Unfortunately, my left hand tilde key I've remapped to be another enter key because I'm lefty, so I find I've got to rewrite a bit of script to have a hotkey to trigger that one off, so that I can put this code in, so that I can actually just have my code working properly. So that's something that I found I've had to do as far as code. The second thing which I find a little bit awkward inside Obsidian, coming back to our article through here, is images. Now, again, if you think about this, this is a folder on your computer, but it's going to be on different computers. So if you're pathing to a file, or you're pathing to an image on your computer, it may be a different path, or it may not exist on another computer. So if there's something that I want, so let's just go into this one here, phonetics through here, and I go Control-Shift-1, and I just take a screenshot through there, which will pop up when it thinks about it. There it comes. That's I've now got to, here it's opening up. I've now got to go in to I want to keep that actually, so I want to switch over to another one, and I now need to go into screenshots, and I store all of my images on screenshots, so it comes in a specific folder that I can then clean it out on a regular basis. And I'm going to rename this. I've also, my screenshots, I have a very long path. I have the date, I have the hour and the minute that it's done, and then I have a list of where I've got it from. So this has come through from Firefox. So it's got a really long thing, so I usually rename it something like any number or something like that, unless I need something relevant. And then I've got to copy that or move it across to blast. I had that there. There we are. And I usually put it into the folder where my article is written, or where I want that thing to work. So when I come back into here, I can now go and find where's YouTube videos, down into here, 654. I can now drag that in, and I can drag that image in. So images are not as easy. If it's a URL, say if it's an image on the website, you can just give it the URL, and that's quite good. I'm not too sure if it displays it, it just gives the URL. But if you actually want the image in there, and this is how I use it, I do a screenshot of it, and then I copy the thing. Some people actually have a directory where they actually have their all of their images, and they link to that. I just generally put it into the item that I'm actually doing at that point in time. And one of the ones for this one, a demonstration of that one, is that I was doing a bit of research about getting some scaffolding for my house maintenance, and then I was looking at the size of the scaffolding and which one was most appropriate, and then I modelled it, and then I actually just, instead of having the file from the modelling program, I actually just took some screenshots. And bang them in just like that. So it's sort of, I can see, yes, it actually works. Although on that one there, my head is going through the roof, but I know that one level of scaffolding will work, so it's fine to do. So I've just got a reference to see which ones were the most appropriate from that point of view. So I keep them in the thing. The same as well if you have a file, because that file location will be different on two different PCs or wherever you're doing. You've really got to put your file, a copy of that file, inside your Obsidian vault, so that it has the same file connection, so you know where the location is. So if it's a script file, or it's a program file, or it's a text file or something like that, just remember you have to bring it in to within that vault, so that it's always going to find itself, unless I think you maybe have it up on your sync or in your Google Drive or something like that, in which case you've got a URL linked to those particular points of what you're doing. So that's just something you've got to think about. Generally though, because this is something that I'm using generally for note taking and things like that, I'm quite happy to have it in the edit mode rather than in the visual mode and stuff like that. Now this brings me to the second point, which I just want to talk about, which is the publishing. Now what you can do is that you can, this is all just private data that you've actually got, but if you want to share that data, one of the ways that you can share that data is you can publish the data. Now, I watched this gentleman here, he's got an article on publishing Vault Online with Quartz. This is for free, so this is Obsidian publishing for free. Because he was a bit knocked back by the price for actually doing this. So if you're using the publishing, it's costing you $16 US a month. Now, I have a 300 gigabyte VPS, virtual private server, in Germany that's running Microsoft Windows. So it's full program, full computer running all the time, 24 hours a day, and I'm paying 16 euros. So pretty much I think they're on par at this point in time. So I'm paying that for a month, and that's running at least 7 websites that I've actually got. So I think that is not good value. I think this is good value because you can get it on all your devices. You know, mobile devices and any computers, one at work, one at home, or for lots of people as well if they're all doing those sorts of things. So that sort of makes sense to me if you want to go down that track. But with the publish, what you're getting is something like this. And there are ones in here, if I just go, oh no, that's right back to the thing. If I go, no, there is one with an image in, which is quite nice. I just can't. These ones through here. Let's just see if that one comes through. No, it's not doing. I haven't, but she's got an image in there. But I find that's kind of quite a plain website. It does allow you to do the dark and the light, and you can actually have some images in there. In fact, I think a lot of that earlier one does have something like an image in. No, that one has got that. It's reasonably tidy, but it's nothing good. I prefer I've got my website. I've got a lot of articles on there, and it's nice to keep all my articles in the same place. So I looked at this gentleman here, and he ended up with suddenly saying, okay, then he wanted to have his vault online, so that he could display. Now the way that you do that, there is this thing called Quartz, which is this lady. It's a repository that you can fork and use. And basically it's on GitHub, and what you do is that you end up creating a GitHub pages. Now I have got a GitHub pages, so I can actually build that. And what it does is it builds a Hugo website. So Hugo is a static generated website. So it creates static pages, of which your markdown ones are already there, and it just displays those. Now, this gentleman here seems to be a bit of a programmer and very impressive. He wanted to use it all from one vault. Now, this is where I think there's a reason if you wanted two vaults, and I'll talk about the reason why I was exploring this in a way, is that what he ended up having to do was he ended up having to have a tag or some method of actually saying which ones he actually wanted to be public and which ones he wanted to keep private. Then he'd have to write a script that would take those public ones and then move them to a location. Now what it actually does is it copies your stuff. It does a git connects, and it actually does a git copy across all of the things that you want and puts them into a Git repository, and then it does a Hugo on that. It uses the static web page process of actually displaying the places. So that's what Jackie has done on this website here. So that's what she's done through there. So it's basically pull requests through there, and then she uses GitHub Actions, and she uses the pages in GitHub. Now I actually have a GitHub Pages one where I've got so you need a domain, and you can get one from something like Free Non for free, and you can get a domain name, and then you can actually link that with your GitHub location, and then you can actually display it through there. But I suddenly thought about this because I thought, how do I do this? And so the issue that I had with my Obsidian was this is written in Markdown, and what I was finding was that I was throwing all these ideas together about an article that I was going to write about, and then I had to rewrite it all again inside of HTML. So I had one in, so I suddenly thought, so I started to look up this gentleman's article and what he was doing, and when I actually saw his problem, I suddenly thought, well, actually, why are you going through all of that? All you actually need to do is actually have two vaults. You can have a private vault with all of your information in, and the public vault is all you do is you just copy the items you want. So if we actually just go into the vault, if we go into our vaults, we can actually have Obsidian, and then we can have another one called Test Obsidian. So inside here, I'm just going to delete this one here and go yes. And then what I can actually do is that I can go inside my Obsidian and I can say, oh, I want all of these articles to be shown on my web page. So if this is the vault, which is just totally public, and the other one is all just private, I've got all of my information in the private ones, and any ones that I want to share with anybody else, I can just move across or copy across to the public one. So I've got the main private one, and I've just got the bits that I want to display in another vault across there. So I don't have to do anything fancy. It just, all it does is it just does a pull request on this one, and anything on there it goes and displays. Whereas what he has is he's got all of these watches in Bash that he's writing to actually pull the information across and do all sorts of things, and which ones it's allowed to do and which ones. So they're far too complicated. So when I start to look into this, and when I start to do this and look to do this and everything, I say that, oh yeah, I could go down all of that, or else I could just do something where I had an article, might say this is the article that I actually wanted, and I can actually use something like a Markdown converter. So I can actually select all of that information, put it into Markdown, and then convert across into, I might have to refresh that one, put it across into the other one that I have, and then I've got the raw HTML that I can actually just paste into my Word document. I don't know whether I can actually do that line, but whether I can paste the whole lot, or whether I've got to do it line by line. I haven't tried it yet, but I thought that solves the problem, because I've then still got the information in my Obsidian. I've got my stuff through there, and I've created half the process that I can actually just paste a lot of the information. I've got my links and things like that. I may have to rebuild them. Now, one of the couple of things that I didn't notice when I was doing that Markdown through there, if we just go back through the other ones, did I get the header? Obsidian bit. One of the ones which I did notice on the header in the Obsidian vid, if we just come back into here, is that you'll find, now what's wrong with you there, is that this is still showing with double brackets around it. And those double brackets get transported across even though it's actually doing the conversion. So what I ended up having to do is I may have to get a little auto hotkey script that'll go through and do some stripping of some of the extra syntax in there or symbols that are not necessarily required. Oh, sorry, so there it is. So you see that's coming through like that. So if I copy it in that state there, copy, and I come back, oh, actually that's an interesting one, V, and then what you see is coming through with the double brackets. But I hadn't realized, cool, if I had actually gone into the view mode, so there's another thing. So let's just copy that again and go back into there and go into there. And I think maybe it didn't do an extra copy. Let's just see. No, it didn't. So I need to come back into there, go out of there and go copy that again. And oh no, I'm in view. Go into view mode. Copy. And if I go into there, oops, B, and yeah, so it actually cleans up some of those things. Although, again, I have got headers and things like that, but that's quite easily. I can actually just copy that, copy, and I think I can go H3 and go V, go OK. Oh, it's not doing it into, it's not writing into there, but I can actually grab that and rechange it into a header with some keys. I suddenly thought, well, actually, that's an easier method, doing a lot of these other ones. And the reason why I, in some ways, did want to do that is because that's not my only website. So therefore, I'm actually maintaining two different things. I'm maintaining my VPS and I'm actually maintaining a GitHub page and also bringing all the things in through there. The other thing that I found quite useful with the free one that I've got through here is that it's actually the main folder is sitting on my NAS drive that it's actually reading from, so it's kept on the storage device. I ended up going away to my daughter, so when I did that I copied it onto my local drive and I used the local drive when I was up there, and then when I came back I then put it back onto the NAS so that all of my computers all then talked on and had the latest thing that I actually wanted. So, in conclusion, if we just come back into the visual one, because I've got my images, they don't seem to show up on that. Pro, to me, it's easy to use. It's got some great free plugins. It's got good videos and support and help. Great for research and cross-association with a lot of the information you've got. It's good from the point of view, as I really do think it is like a second brain for you forever. Not too sure about the forever, but it's a good second brain where you've got a whole load of ideas that you throw together. It's good with the codex. It does the templates and it does the search and the data views. It's got the graph, although I don't use it. The cons are the syntax. You've got to get that, sorry, the syncing. You've got to get your things syncing if you're using it on more than one device. If and you know, there are free methods of doing that. Is that you do it to Google Drive or iCloud or something like that, or you end up paying the sync. You know, the thing is, if I, since I'm always broke, I can't afford that $8 a month really for this particular thing. So, but if I was, I think it's reasonably good value. It's a very, very powerful tool to have all of that information, and that is personal information that you find really useful, and that you're actually building up all of these concepts and things like that. I see a lot of people who have reading. They do a lot of reading, and then they're putting ideas from their readings into these. And I think there's links in where you can get it into your link to your Kindle, and that looks quite interesting as well. It's not the method that I use. So it's great because there's a lot of your brain that you're actually bringing you. So I think, I've had that idea, how can I, and you're suddenly writing a new one and you just associate with it. And it's good, you've linked that idea so that you can access it later. The links need the copying and pasting, the double copy and pasting. That process needs to be done. Also, the links are a little messy to build now. Now I've actually built a process that actually does them quite easy, and I've got a good thing. the markdown, the issue that I've had of writing an article and then switching it into something else as well. The other thing is actually having a hotkey to be able to flick it up as quick as you want. So I'm in here, I just want to write something on the article and I want to be in there. I don't want to be coming down onto my toolbar trying to actually access the thing through there. And I do need something as a hotkey because I prefer hotkeys and I want to access it really quickly. So toolbars are fine if you're popping things up at regular intervals, but if you're doing things on a regular basis, I actually want a hotkey. It's easy to just pull up as you need to write things down, and that's the way to do. So, and to me, the biggest power of it is it works the way my mind works. In other words, I throw things and I can associate later. And I can easily access quite a lot of information. I don't actually know the stats of this, of actually how many articles I got. But I actually found also, just from a point of view of personal project management, this with of writing several books, translating a lot of those books, doing courses, and I think I had 3 or 4 books on one topic and 2 on another topic. I found that it was easy to manage with the Kanban thing. That worked for me. I hadn't really used it before, and I found it was quite handy. And the fact is that I can just throw any idea on there. So as I said, I've got stuff on family, I've got stuff on health, I've got stuff on particular articles, which is just general. I've got some on courses, I've got some on books, I've got some on scripting, and like at the moment I've got these other projects. They're sort of, it's the first stage. One of them that is coding Space Invaders. Now, it's something that I'm interested in. One, because I'm sort of interested in maybe coding a game, because I quite like the idea of sprites and want to learn about those. The other one, this is also a Python course. So I want to learn a different programming language. At the moment, I've mainly only got the auto hotkey scripting, because that's what I've been focusing on in a way. But this allows me to start, so later on this will be, instead of, I've most probably changed that to scripting auto hotkey, and then actually have scripting Python or something, because it's all to do with scripting, and then different areas of what you're actually jumping into. This I do find very useful. Of you close it down, it disappears. There is one that opens a whole lot of tabs that you can actually have open, but I find this, what was the last thing I worked on? It's not sitting in the background, so I suppose it uses less resources, the fact that you've got to open it up. So actually having this tag here, which is the recent ones, is really good to do. There is a star, I don't use that because I use the tags. They're more than handy to actually find the information that I actually want through here. So there's a tagging, there's different processes of tagging. This is adequate for me at this point in time. When it gets more elaborate, I may have to go through and do extra bit of tagging in a lot of things and adding those to my templates. Unfortunately, the ones where I haven't done already, I'll have to add to later, but that's just the nature of the beast in a way. I don't know if I can programmatically go through and be able to do that. But to me, it really satisfies a lot of needs. Now, I am actually using it free, but if I was doing another one, I think for its use, to me, this is worth the extra, some of the pricing things on it. This one here is to me worth that for that, but I don't need to at this point in time. But again, plugins, there's 670 of them. I played about with most probably about 30 of them. There's prettier formats, and there's a GitHub plugin one that I may have to try to see about storing some of my stuff on GitHub. It's definitely worth giving a look. But and I find it's really the go-to place for me putting information at this point in time. So as a knowledge-based thing, absolutely brilliant. I definitely recommend it. Thank you very much for watching.